I stopped believing a discharge date meant an ending. I just hadn't had proof of it yet. Not until the Wednesday in late August when the automatic doors at Fairview Rehab whooshed open at 4:50 in the afternoon, and a man walked through them without a cane, without a walker, without anyone holding his elbow, and stood in the middle of the lobby like he'd forgotten why he came. I knew him before I let myself know him. 9 months will do that. Carve a person's walk into your memory whether you want it there or not. Except this walk was wrong, in the good way. Smooth. Even. Nothing like the halting, gritted teeth shuffle I used to count out loud for. 1, 2, 1, 2, down the parallel bars while he swore under his breath, and I pretended not to hear. Dana. He said my name like he was setting something down carefully, both hands, so it wouldn't spill. Marcus. I had a clipboard against my chest, like a shield I didn't know I needed. You're not on my schedule. I know. I checked. He almost smiled. Figured that'd sound less strange out loud than it does now. Here's the thing nobody tells you about being a physical therapist. You spend weeks with a person's pain right there in your hands, closer than most relationships get in a year. You feel the exact moment their leg stops fighting you and starts trusting you. Marcus Webb had been 34 years old and furious about it, 6 months into recovering from a car wreck that took the strength out of his right side and, for a while, the certainty out of his voice. I'd watched him go from a man who couldn't stand at the sink long enough to brush his teeth to a man who could climb a full flight of stairs without stopping to catalogue his own heartbeat. Then he graduated out of my life the way patients are supposed to. A discharge summary, a handshake, a good luck out there that I meant with my whole chest, and then filed away because that's the job. You pour yourself into someone for weeks, and then you let them walk out the door, and you never find out what happens next. That not knowing used to keep me up some nights more than I ever admitted to anyone. I got your number wrong for a while, he said, which made no sense until he kept going. I mean, I had it. You gave discharge instructions to my sister, remember, in case I needed follow-up, and she wrote your cell down along with the clinic line because she's nosy like that. I've had it sitting in my phone for 8 months under PT. Do not call. Unprofessional. He rubbed the back of his neck. I wrote that note to myself so I wouldn't do something dumb while you were still my therapist. Guess I forgot to delete it once that stopped being true. I set the clipboard down on the front desk because my hands had started doing something unhelpful with it. Marcus, that's a long time to sit on a phone number. I wanted to be sure it wasn't just gratitude talking. You pull a guy back onto his own 2 feet, it's easy to confuse thank you with something else. He looked at me steady, the way he used to look at the bars before he trusted himself to let go of them. Took me a while to be sure. Then it took me longer to work up the nerve to just show up instead of texting. Because texting felt like something I could talk myself out of, and showing up didn't leave me an exit. I want to tell you I had something smooth to say back. I didn't. What I had was 9 months of Tuesdays where I'd wondered, against my own rules, whether the man in room 4 had made it back to his job, whether he still did the ankle exercises I'd nagged him about, whether he thought about me at all outside the context of a resistance band and a stopwatch. You're not supposed to wonder that. They train it out of you, or they try to. But it never fully leaves, does it? That soft, human curiosity about a person who let you see them at their worst and came out the other side. I think anyone who's cared for someone through the hard part knows exactly what I mean, whether that person was a patient or a parent or somebody you loved and lost track of. You don't get to pick when the wondering stops. I'm not your therapist anymore, I said, mostly to hear it out loud. No, he agreed. Been almost a year. I checked that too. Wanted it to be clean. That mattered to me more than the flowers he was apparently too nervous to have actually bought, more than the fact that he'd found out my shift, more than any of it. He'd waited. Not because some rulebook made him, but because he understood, on his own, that what happens in that gym has to end fully before anything real can start outside it. A man who does that on his own account, without being told. That told me something about the shape of him I hadn't gotten to see over 6 months of hamstring curls and gritted teeth. Co-workers had opinions, of course. Preeti from the front desk practically vibrated behind her monitor. My supervisor, Renata, pulled me aside 2 days later. Because word travels fast in a building with thin walls and thinner boundaries between people's business. And asked, not unkindly, if I was sure. "It's not against policy," she said. "He's been discharged the better part of a year. I just want to know you're thinking it through and not just flattered." Fair question. I've asked it of myself more than once since. Where's the line between a man who's genuinely built something new with you and a man who's still a little in love with the person who helped him stand up again? I turned that over for weeks, honestly, some version of it turning over in my head every time he called just to hear about my day and never once brought up his old chart, his old injury, his old self on the mats. We took it slow enough that it almost embarrassed me. Coffee that turned into dinner that turned into him showing up at the farmer's market 3 blocks from the clinic on the Sundays I usually went alone, both of us circling the question of what we were before we'd let ourselves name it. What convinced me wasn't a big gesture. It was smaller than that. 6 weeks in, we were walking back from a diner and he stopped at a curb out of nothing but old habit and glanced down at his right foot before stepping off it. Just a flicker. Then he caught me watching him catch himself, and laughed at his own reflex instead of getting embarrassed by it. "Still checking in with it," he said. "Guess some things don't fully leave you." "Good," I told him. "Means you remember what it cost to get it back." He looked at me a long moment on that curb, traffic going by, and said, "You're the reason I remember." Not a line, just true. It's late August again now, almost a year to the week since he walked back through those doors, and he still checks that foot on curbs sometimes. And I still notice every time, and neither of us has ever once called it unprofessional. I think about the discharge summary I wrote for him that day. Recovery complete, goals met, no further treatment indicated, and how wrong it turned out to be, and how right, both at once. The treatment ended. He never did. I still don't know if I'd have had the nerve to wait the way he waited, to sit on a feeling for the better part of a year, just to be sure it was real before I let it near someone. I'd like to think I would have. I'm honestly not certain. But I know exactly which one of us he decided to become, and I know he came back for her on purpose, with both feet steady under him, and stayed.